Hi folks, HR Funk here. Today I'm going to be doing a requested review of the M9 service pistol. I've had several people ask for me to do this, including one gentleman who was nice enough to loan me his pistol. This comes from friend and fellow sniper Andrew, who was requesting that I do this video, so I want to say thanks, and I'll do the best review that I can. Now, some of you may recall that I've mentioned in past videos that when I was in the Marine Corps, I was not issued an M9. I was in from 85 to 89, and during that entire time, I was issued an M1911 pistol. And when I was recalled for Operation Desert Storm in 1991, I was again issued a 1911. I'm not complaining about that. I was pretty happy about having a 1911, but the M9 ostensibly supplanted the 1911 or replaced it in 1985. Even so, up to 6 years later, I was still carrying a 1911. Now, one of the byproducts of that is I received no training and have had very little experience with the M9 pistol, so I'm a relative novice to this particular platform. Now, I have handled M9s, I have fired them, and I've fired their civilian counterparts, the Beretta 92, but I still have relatively little experience with this particular pistol. So what I'm going to be doing today is evaluating the pistol as I go, and I'll be narrating that for you folks so you can sort of hear my thoughts as I go along. We'll talk about the M9/M92, and eventually we'll get around to doing some shooting with it and see how it performs. At first glance, the M9 has very elegant European styling. It has the open top slide, reminiscent of the Walther P38. It has a very graceful grip contour, and it has the rakish looking reverse contour trigger guard that was stylish when this pistol was designed for the then popular finger forward shooting grip. Now, even though that's faded away over the years, the Beretta 92 maintains that styling. As I said a moment ago, the grip contour of the Beretta is very nice. It fits my hand well. However, unlike some newer designs, and I'm sure this was something that was in the mind of our military as they were evaluating new service pistols recently, there is no means to adjust the size of this grip or the angle of this grip for new shooters. Pretty much what you see is what you get. And these days, people in our military come in all different sizes, so if the Beretta M9 does not happen to fit your grip, it's not going to work well or point naturally for you. It does for me, but I can see where this would be a concern with some shooters if the grip is just too big. Moving on to the open top slide, while this makes it very simple, if you need to single load ammunition, that you could get rounds in there without any trouble, which would admittedly be a rare occurrence these days in the military, but it does offer that advantage. However, it has also been criticized as a potential ingress point for sand and dirt and other things that could adversely affect the functional reliability of the pistol. Now, since this is a loaned firearm, I'm not going to take it over and bury it in the dirt there or throw it into a river or anything else to test the functional reliability. In a little while, we're going to do some shooting with it, and it's going to be under relatively benign range conditions. But I do believe the Beretta is a relatively reliable pistol. I don't think the military would have used it all these years if there were major problems with it. I think there have been some minor problems along the way, much like most any military firearm that's been adopted ever. But I think those problems largely have been taken care of. However, there are a few things, and I want to talk about these. One of the issues that has been criticized over the years are the safety. And this slide-mounted safety has very small safety levers, unlike some of its contemporary pistols that were designed back in the 1980s that had much larger levers. And one of the problems with these levers is with an overhand grip to charge the pistol, you can inadvertently activate the safety like I did just there. With the larger safety levers on some pistols, or maybe a stiffer spring inside to help keep that from moving, that's less of a concern. But I could definitely see under stress doing an overhand reload where that safety applying itself and then rendering the trigger inoperative would be a big concern. And I think that's something that probably should have been addressed long ago, and as you can see, still has not. Now, I know Beretta did take steps with the M9A3 to cure that problem. My understanding is those safety levers are aimed slightly up, so when you pull back, it doesn't do that. It stays in the fire position. Another concern I have with the M9 is the external trigger bar. As you can see, there is plenty of room in here for foreign material to get in behind there and potentially keep the trigger from resetting, and maybe even, if it gets enough stuff all around there caked on, prevent it from being pulled in the first place. That's something that just makes me a little bit nervous to see it. Most firearms have whatever type of device that connects the trigger to the hammer or the striker on the inside of the frame. That part being on the outside causes me a little concern. The sights on the M9 are the standard 3-dot style. They are fairly visible, although they are somewhat small. I think for particularly military troops or anyone who's firing under stress, slightly bigger sights might not be a bad idea. Just something with a little bit more visibility I think would help out. The M9 has a 15-shot magazine with one in the chamber. That gives you a 16-shot capacity. And the new M9A3 has upped that to a 17-round capacity now, so there is good ammunition capacity with the M9. At just a touch over 34 ounces, the M9 is about half a pound heavier than most contemporary pistols today. Now, those pistols admittedly have a polymer frame, whereas the M9 retains the alloy frame. Some people might think that makes it a little bit more durable, but the polymer frames have proven plenty durable with the pistols that use those, so I really think that's probably a draw. Along with the open-top slide, the M9 borrows another design feature from Walther, specifically the double-action first and single-action successive shot trigger system that Walther pioneered back in the early part of the 20th century. This is a system, there I just did that again. This is a system that is criticized by some because you have to master the transition between the long, heavy double action pull and the relatively short, light single action pull. I can tell you with training that is possible, but you do have to work with the pistol in order to master that transition and master both triggers. What happens a lot of times with folks who don't train a lot is that first pull gets jerked into the ground, and then the single action shots after that are relatively accurate shots. But you really have to work on mastering that first double action pull and then transitioning to the short light pull. Disassembly of the M9 is extremely easy. First, remove the magazine. Next, depress this button on the frame, and there is a lever on this side that you rotate down, which obviously releases the slide and recoil spring assembly. Remove the recoil spring assembly from the slide along with the recoil spring guide, and lift the rear of the barrel and remove it, and you have disassembled the pistol. Reassemble in reverse order. Slide and barrel goes in first. Recoil spring assembly. There is a cutout right here for the rear of your recoil spring guide that does not seem to want to sit in there. Replace the assembled slide barrel and recoil spring assembly onto the slide. Rotate this lever back up, and the pistol is reassembled. So disassembly and reassembly in the field is something that's very easy with the M9. In fact, I think it's probably one of the easier firearms to disassemble when you're talking about just plain field stripping it. Okay folks, that's enough talking about the M9. Let's do some shooting and see how it performs. I'm going to start out with an accuracy test from 30 feet, and we'll see how that goes. Then we'll do a little bit faster defensive-oriented shooting with the M9. Now, one of the things that I'm going to be working on when I do the defensive drills is transitioning from that long double-action pull to the short, light single-action pulls. So we'll see how that goes. One of the things that I notice with the M9 is that double-action pull is very long and very heavy, more so than some other pistols that feature that type of a trigger system. So I want to see exactly how that works, or how well it works, when I start doing some shooting with it. Now, the accuracy drill that I do is going to be kind of fun. We're going to be shooting this from 30 feet. I have a red thumbtack dead center of my target, and I'm going to see if I can shoot that sucker out of there with the M9. Okay folks, here we go. 30 feet. This is going to be the first time I've ever fired this pistol, and we'll see how accurate it is. Now, since I'm going to be doing an accuracy test, I will be firing all these shots single action. When I get onto the defensive drills later on, that's when I'll start to work with the double action. But I'm looking just at accuracy here, so I'm going to fire these shots single action. Got it with the last shot. And along with being a fun exercise, shooting at the thumbtack, by the way, you can see pieces of the plastic embedded in the paper here. We can see from 30 feet, we have very nice accuracy with the M9. Again, this is shooting with the single action trigger, but still very nice accuracy. Okay folks, we're up to some defensive drills now. This time I've got 2 targets down here. I'm going to fire 1 shot at the target on the right, 3 shots at the target on the left, and then 2 more shots at the target on the right. I am going to start out with the pistol in double action mode, so I'm going to have to work that trigger transition, and we'll see just how this drill goes. No real problem there. The first, 5th, and 6th shots all stayed right with that group that I had before. On this target over here, I spread them around a little bit, but they're all still fairly effective shots. Not too bad, even working that double action trigger transition. Okay, this time I'm going to work some of the infamous failure drills. 2 shots to the body, 1 shot to the head. What I'm going to do after each shot to the head, I'm going to decock the pistol so it goes back to the double action trigger. So each time I start the sequence, I'm going to be firing with a double action pull. And no problems with the failure drill. Again, the shots to the body are right where they should be. The shots to the head are where they should be. The double action pull on this pistol is kind of heavy, but it's very smooth, which helps out tremendously with the controllability of that. I'm kind of surprised. I thought with the weight of the trigger, it would be a little bit more difficult, but in firing those particular drills, there were no issues whatsoever in that transition. Okay folks, a few more defensive drills. I'm going to be working a few double taps and triple taps, working that trigger transition, and just giving the pistol a good workout. Well folks, on each of those last strings, I was doing headshots only. On this one, I was riding the reset on the trigger. As soon as I squeezed off a shot and I felt it reset, I was squeezing off the next shot. On both of these, out of 10 shots, I managed to pull 1 shot off to the exact same place on both targets. So I guess that's just to help keep me humble. By the way, we've got, 7 out of the 10 shots there, basically going into 1 long hole. So again, as far as accuracy goes and really controllability, the M9 does a very respectable job. Okay folks, so after all that shooting, what do I think of the M9? First off, I think it's a very accurate, very controllable pistol. I didn't have any problems maintaining it as fast as I was shooting any of those times, other than, of course, those times that I pierced the ear on the target. But that's my fault, that's not the pistol's fault. Can't be blamed on this. Really, in shooting it, the only thing I noticed is something that I mentioned in my original assessment. I wish the sights were a little bit more highly visible. I did also have to be careful when I was cycling the slide not to accidentally apply the safety. Now, I managed to not do that any of the times that I was working it, but I can definitely see how that could happen. So unlike our military, I don't think I'm going to go out and trade in all my 1911s on M9s anytime soon. At the same time, if you happen to have an M9, I think you have a pretty good firearm. So whether you're a fan of the M9 or if you're somebody that doesn't care for it, I think we can at least all agree that the military could have done a lot worse on selecting a service pistol than the M9. So that's the video for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave those below. And as always, until next time, good shooting. Bye-bye.